Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a build guide for the Frost Domain Cleric in Baldur's Gate 3. This is a mod that was made by GIGeorge. You may also know them for their Oath of the Frozen Wilds Paladin subclass. Both of these are available on console and PC. I also want to give them a thank you for commenting on my College of Winterspirit Bard subclass. It was really nice to see that. Now the Frost Domain Cleric here, it gets a choice of a few different cantrips that they get at level 1 here. So you get the choice of Ray of Frost, Frostbite Blade, and Chilling Blast. Someone akin to like an Eldritch Blast type spell. Now we also get to choose from the spells here, and it does have support if you have other modded spells, but I'm just going to go with the choice of cantrips. Sacred Flame, I like Produce Flame for Act 2, and Guidance is one of the best cantrips in the entire game. You could also swap off Produce Flame for Resistance. And then for a stat spread, we can roll with something like this, with 16 Dexterity, 16 Wisdom, 14 Constitution, and 10 Intelligence and Charisma. We do have heavy armor proficiency, so if you prefer, you could take those Dexterity points and put them into Strength. But the high dexterity gives us more initiative. Once we hit level 2, we get the Freezing Smite ability here. So this gives us additional cold damage, and the user channel divinity, so you can use that to do a chilling strike. They must do a constitution saving throw or become instantly frozen in place. Frozen means that you do double damage with bludgeoning, force, and thunder damage, making it actually quite fun. You get to turn to dead as usual, and I would just recommend grabbing Creator Destroy Water because it has a lot of synergy with this setup. Bless is a great spell. Command is nice because Command Approach makes them slip on ice. It's kind of funny. And we'll also throw on Sanctuary and Healing Word, 2 bonus actions depending on when you need them, but Command is just such a useful spell the early game, even at the end game. Level 3 gives us our Misty Step and Gust of Wind, which are great spells, and we can take on things like Hold Person, and even Spiritual Weapon. I really like to throw a Spiritual Weapon at the enemy's backline. If you have a mace, or if you use the Maul that can actually daze targets, which is super good for this setup. Now we can take another cantrip here, Toll the Dead, I guess, or Produce Flame. And for the next spell we'll go with Spiritual Weapon. And for the first feat, you can go with the Alert for the +5 to our initiative, or we can go with an increase to our Wisdom. I prefer going with the Wisdom first, and then the initiative on the second level up. And then at level 5, we get a boost because we get Slow, which is a really good and underrated spell. We also get the Sleet Storm here, makes perfect sense. Break concentrations with it. It's actually a really good spell as well, underrated for sure. And we get an extra spell because we increased our Wisdom. We also get Spirit Guardians, which is just fantastic, very high damage. And then we could take Glyph of Warding and use the cold version as kind of like a mini cold ice ball type attack. Or we can go with the Mass Healing Words. That's typically a good choice as well. Once we hit level 6, we get the subclass feature Heart of the Everfrost. This allows your cold spells to overcome resistances to cold damage, and you cannot fall prone while traversing the icy terrain. And you also get the Arctic Tempest here, doing a 3d8 plus 4 cold damage. In a surge of divine power, you unleash the blinding storm of snow and ice, blinding enemies and hindering their movement. It deals 7 to 28 cold damage per turn, 10 turns. Kind of like a sleet storm that deals damage and has some extra effects there. Really fun. We also get our next leveled spell here. I'm going to take the Glyph of Warding. Those are sometimes nice just to set them up. And it gives you a bunch of different elemental damage option choices if you want something different. At level 7, we get Ice Storm. Fantastic spell, and it ignores resistance with the cold damage on all of these. Fire Shield Chill as well, which is nice too. And then we get access to level 4 spells here with things like Banishment being a fun choice. I like Guardian of Faith. You can basically just set this down and have a tank for your team. If you know you're getting into a fight, you can throw that down ahead of time. And at level 8, we get the Blessed Strike. So you get to choose between the Divine Strike or the Potent Spellcast and add your Wisdom modifier. This is similar to most clerics. I love that you get the choice here. I'm going to recommend going Divine Strike Cold. Now, the reason being is that you can actually trigger with an offhand crossbow. If you play a drow, you get the hand crossbow proficiency, and you can just shoot away with that. It's kind of fun. So that's my personal recommendation. We'll then take another spell here. Death Ward's kind of nice to have just for the team, or even Banishment. We're going to go with the Alert feat here, although you could go with an increase to your Wisdom. And if you want, Warcaster is another decent choice here, which will keep you from breaking your concentrations as much. And you also get a Shocking Grasp reaction attack. Level 9 is a big power spike because we have Cone of Cold and Hold Monster. Cone of Cold being very powerful. 8d8 cold. There's not a lot of resistances to cold damage in the game, but it's always nice to not have to worry about it at all. We then get Insect Plague or the Flame Strike spells. I'm going to go with the Insect Plague here, but we're likely going to be using Cone of Cold for our level 5 spell slot. Once we hit level 10, we get another choice in cantrip here, and I guess Toll the Dead. Or Resistance, I guess we took that previously. Thaumaturgy is a good choice, I guess, too. And I guess we'll take Flame Strike. You never know when sometimes you just need a Radiant damage option. And then at level 11, we got Wall of Ice and Odaluke's Freezing Sphere, one of my favorite spells in the game that only the wizard gets access to. Not no more. You can put it on here. So yeah, those are listed as our domain spells and also as spells that you can select here. But we're going to take Planar Ally, and then Hero's Feast is another good option too. You can actually take that off and put a Hero's Feast. There are staves in the game that can give you a free cast of one of the spells there, so that's really nice. And then for the last, if you're sticking at level 12, we'll go with an increase to our wisdom. We can also go past this to level 20. So you actually have to prepare the spells, but you can always prepare spells at any given moment. So we'll throw on Odaluk's Freezing Sphere and that there. Create Undead is nice to have too, just an extra summon to soak up damage for your team. And then as we continue through the levels, we're going to get more health, and then you can select feats once we get to the higher levels. For the first feat, I would actually recommend going with the tough feat to get extra 2 health points per level. That just gives you a lot of tankiness and survivability. Level 17 gives the Wrath of the Glaciers. Channel the inexorable force of the glaciers into your magic. When you cast a Frost Domain cold spell, you may expend glacial fragments equal to the spell's level to empower it. Empower spells always deal the full damage regardless of the saving throws. Pretty good stuff, considering you can also double cold damage. So that's really, really strong. And I guess for the next spell we'll take is Heal. Not a bad choice. Blade Barrier, I guess. It's really your choice at this point. We already got everything that we want to be casting anyways, most of the cold domain spells. Another Channel Divinity once we hit level 18. Level 19 gives us another feat. I always like the Lucky Feat on level 20 builds. Just one that's nice to have if you can get it. You can also go with a Dexterity increase if you want to use a medium armor, but I'm going to go with the Lucky Feat. It's just really good. And then level 20 just gives us another spell slot. As for gear, now, I really like the Luminous Armor on any Cleric. Just very powerful and still really good on this setup in particular. We can also throw in the Snowburst Ring here, which will create ice surfaces when we do cold damage. I like that with the Coruscation Ring to apply Radiating Orbs. These all come together, but if we're going to use the Luminous Armor, we may as well go all in on that and then also use the Callous Glow Ring, because whenever we do that, we get 2 points of Radiant damage on our spells, and then we also will proc our Luminous Armor again. And you can also throw in the Luminous Gloves too to further stack up Radiating Orbs. It's just one of the best Cleric setups in my opinion, just because Spirit Guardians is so good. And then we can also throw in the Cloak Protection, Deathstalker Mantle if you're Dirge, Holy Lands Helm, so when they miss us, we're still reapplying more Radiating Orbs, and we do radiant damage to them. And since we're setting up conditions, we're going to take the Boots of Stormy Clamor for additional reverberation. Now, we could also have went with the Winter's Clutches. I did have those on whenever you deal cold damage. That puts 2 turns of Encrusted with Frost. We do have an ability that can freeze enemies, so it's entirely up to you. You could use that and the Cold Brim Hat and the Snowburst Ring. From my testing with ice surfaces, they're really good, but we can also do some pretty good things while using Radiating Orbs as well on top of using ice surfaces. We're also going to use the Marika Heshker Staff and then take Kreska's Favor for the Frost of the Dark Winter to further apply Encrusted with Frost. We get the Conduit of Kreska's Ice, which will then inflict 1 turn of Frost upon the target. So yeah, it's actually Encrusted with Frost, not 1 turn of Frost. Now, before you get into combat, I'd actually recommend using Spirit Guardians to set up. We also got those Glacial Fragments there, which we can use in power spells. I'm going to go with the Spirit Guardians because this is just a good way to protect your team. And if you're at higher levels, you can upcast that for a bit more damage. Now, the best ways earlier in the game would be to use the Arctic Tempest here. This is unfortunately concentration. I should have set that up beforehand. I'll show that a bit later. But setting up things like Ice Storm, Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, you want to have damage set up, or terrain set up so that the enemies are slipping and falling. Frostbite Blade is nice, giving yourself that additional cold damage, but it's sometimes a little bit better if you don't have surfaces set up to then start with a surface. And since Odaluk's Freezing Sphere has a huge radius, you can hit a bunch of enemies at once, and you see that extra radiant damage is nice because anyone that didn't, they got a bit of Radiating Orbs on them. This target didn't, they got Reverberation, but we're in a shadow, that's why. We want to be lit up in a light source. Alternatively, you could have someone with something like the Nirelna to light up your entire team with. That works too. Now, we also have a few things like Misty Step and Mass Healing Word, so depending what we need for utility, we got a lot of different options. If you need to protect someone, Sanctuary is the way to go. Yeah, that's the beauty of this subclass. I did mention putting Hand Crossbows, I forgot to do that, because you could use your Divine Strike Cold on the enemies this turn. And here we got the Glacial Ward, so you can counter Divine Empowered Barrier of Freezing Energy. The ward absorbs incoming damage up to 4 health points and immediately dissipates. This is a reaction. Now, that is a tricky use, especially if you got the Elith ability to stop like a counter spell, because do you want to use your reaction for 4 health points? Or if you took something like the Sentinel Feat, because that would have just taken 4 damage off and then you're without your reaction. Sometimes, if you know you need something else, it's better to save it. Lucky is nice because you can use that just without eating up your reaction. Unfortunately, we got damage there, but we could have used the Glacial Ward to reduce our damage equal to the Wisdom modifier there. Lucky's so great for whenever you get a critical hit, you can just turn that off, and then it turned into a miss, and then they took damage, the reverse Uno. And they just jumped through my Spirit Guardians and instant died. That was so good. And the great thing about ice surfaces is you use that to kind of block enemies off. Now, I'm using this on the bridge here, and this is why I want to save the... If there was a spell like Command or Hold Person, that would have been much worse for us, but... Now on our next turn, I would recommend, since we already got, I want to show off some of the other abilities here. So things like the Frostbite Blade there, go ahead and attack with that. And we'll use our free crit. Boom, that took them out. And yeah, that was pretty good. We also applied 10 stacks of Radiating Orb on the enemy beside us. We can just ignore them because they're dealt with. That's now 4 stacks on them. Now, I'd probably recommend actually multi-class them with a melee class. I just want to do the full level 20, but yeah, you can only do 1 Frostbite Blade per action, so it's not great action economy to do that when you could be doing a spell that's going to do a bit more damage. Arctic Tempest, if I didn't have Spirit Guardians up, but Spirit Guardians was so nice. We took out that person that's jumped right through it. That'd be the choice here. I can't actually reach back to the back line there, so we're going to go with something else. We alternatively could have used the Freezing Smite too here as a close range attack, or Divine Strike Cold. We actually get a lot of cold damage off on here. If they were closer to me, I would have dropped a Cone of Cold near them. I can't drop Wall of Ice without breaking my concentration. You know what, actually, I'll break the concentration just to show off the Arctic Tempest here. So you can go ahead. I guess this is only a close range. Probably not worth doing at close range. Whatever, we'll pop it anyways. I probably should have walked a little closer. There you go. The Arctic Tempest, you can go ahead there, applies a little extra damage on the enemies in the condition. And we knocked an enemy prone, which is hilarious because they got knocked prone and they got reverberations, so their bodies kind of like rolled around like that. Then we got the heals off for our team. They take cold damage, and that's also further radiant damage, which is going to stack radiating orbs. They just missed us. They didn't take the damage for whatever reason. And we somehow were able to knock them prone as well. That was perfect. So yeah, I'll just probably walk towards them, maybe be able to take them out with a bit of, I didn't get I already had the reverberation off on them. I could do the Cone of Cold at close range, actually, so that's probably the best choice. Melee attacks I would not recommend. And then you see with Cone of Cold, you can sometimes line up so you don't hit your teammates either. Unfortunately, applied Radiant Orbs on that enemy there. And then for the backline, there's just a couple left over there. My recommendation is not to die, is to use, not to use the die, but to use the Odaluk's Freezing Sphere here. Sometimes this is the only spell that we can actually hit enemies with, so we may as well use that for the extra services and range that it gives us. But that is the Frost Domain Cleric in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Go download this mod by GIGeorge here, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching.